With the approval of the new Pfizer vaccine, I thought it'd be a good idea to debunk an anti-vaxxer. It's been a while after all. Now, this won't be specific to any particular vaccine, but you know how they are to anti-vaxxers, they're all bad. If you haven't seen my video 2 weeks ago, I recommend checking it out since it gives some pretty good information on what to expect for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Or you can not check it out. That's fine. It'll just hurt my feelings, but I'll be alright.
By UNICEF, regarding your stance against vaccines, it seems that the United Nations doesn't believe that we can actually repackage inserts on our own.
The information is always out there, you're right. You have access to all the ingredients that are put into a vaccine. But of course, the reason we don't trust people to make decisions based on that is because even if you read the chemicals, you're not going to fully know what they do. Can you imagine if all vaccines were a sort of you take it if you want sort of thing? Doctors know what these things do, so they will recommend it to patients. You can't possibly make an informed decision yourself just by reading the labels. And anti-vaxxers are a pretty good example of this, where they think everything in a vaccine is harmful. They're making an uninformed decision when choosing not to vaccinate. Or rather, an uneducated decision? Wrongly informed decision?
Absolutely.
So can you talk about that? What happened with you being attacked by UNICEF?
Well, I don't know that I was actually attacked, but I think it was interesting that of all of the anti-vaccine, if you want to qualify it that way, I don't really think of myself as anti-vaccine, as I think of myself as more pro-information and pro-education.
Okay, let's not just give ourselves random titles here. I'll continue to call anti-vaxxers anti-vaxxers, thank you very much, because you're definitely not pro-information nor pro-education. I mean, I get it. You want to think you have science on your side, but don't forget that science is very pro-vaccination. But then again, a lot of pseudoscience proponents are always trying to change their own titles, and anti-vaxxers are not the only ones. Like those who don't want to be called climate change skeptics or climate change deniers, when in reality it's a pretty accurate term to use.
And once you understand what's in the vaccines, how they work and how they don't work, then you become one who says no thank you.
I'm pretty sure doctors and researchers know exactly how vaccines work. They didn't get advanced degrees in biology and medicine for nothing. And the majority of people do know how they work, and they're saying thank you all the time.
And I think that's a very different position than just being anti-something just for the sake of being against it.
Yes, but the term anti-vaxxer doesn't care what your reason is for being against it, so the term still stands strong.
So with all of the people out there these days who are now talking about problems associated with vaccines, I would say I'm probably one of the biggest audiences for that. And so UNICEF was going out and looking at Facebook pages and decided that I was one of the biggest terrorists in terms of vaccine information.
Domestic terrorists.
Domestic terrorists, that's right. Probably global terrorists, because
Right.
my Facebook page goes out to about 12 million people globally.
Wow, that's pretty impressive that you have such an audience. Now, would I personally call these people domestic terrorists? I don't know. I mean, the word terrorism is such a strong word and it induces a lot of fear. It comes with the connotation of mass shootings and the direct killing of innocent civilians. Can we possibly equate the spreading of misinformation to actual terrorism? Yes.
Now, you mentioned that one of your goals is to educate, and that's our goal as well. So educate the viewers here. How are vaccines dangerous? How are they doing harm? How are they not effective? Because if you listen to most conventional medical doctors, they'll say, oh, of course, you need to get vaccinated. You're going to do your child harm if you don't. So how is that?
I'm going to make a wild guess here and assume she's not going to actually go into anything specific and instead we'll just talk generally on the situation, which by the way helps no one. Whenever I seek information, I'm always looking for specifics. Generalizing will never get a 100% accurate picture of anything and can very often be misleading because certain words or phrases can be interpreted differently. For example, if you say something like vaccines cause cancer, how do we interpret that? I mean, sure, some of them can contain potentially carcinogenic compounds such as formaldehyde, so in that sense it technically does lead your cells in the direction of mutation. However, the quantity is too low for it to cause any significant damage and your body by itself naturally produces more in quantity. So technically, yes, those vaccines cause cancer, but then again, it doesn't. So it depends on how you define those terms, and there's always some weird small detail that you can nitpick to prove your claim is right. Does that make sense? That's why I absolutely hate general claims, because even if you make a counter to them, say vaccines don't cause cancer, which they don't, there's always the technically they do sort of argument, which is simply infuriating because they can defend their original claim just by changing the small details of the original claim. But we'll see what this lady says.
Well, it's just amazing to me how we think we can inject something that's never been tested for carcinogenity.
We have, you just have to know where the reliable sources are.
Never been tested to see if it's mutagenic, which means changes your DNA.
Mutagenic is a subcategory of carcinogenic, so you're just kind of repeating yourself.
Never know whether or not it can cause any autoimmune diseases, but we can perfectly say that it's safe and effective and causes no harm.
It's not that vaccines don't cause harm, it's that the risk of them potentially harming you is so low that it is worth it for their incredible benefits. Of course, you'll always have those people who have reactions to vaccines, which is why you usually stay at the clinic or hospital for a couple of minutes just in case. But those cases are so rare that you're more likely to be struck by lightning. Of course, the chances of a severe reaction differs between vaccines. Measles vaccine is 1 in a million, for example. Many others are 1 in a few 100,000. It's just unreasonable to not get vaccinated in fear of this, unless of course you've had it before.
If somebody died and made me health czar tomorrow, what I would do is I would round up all the medical doctors, all of them, and I would put them in a big football stadium and have them read all of the package inserts, particularly the pediatricians. Read the VAERS reports from the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, and then take an entire test, a written test on immunology to prove that they know something about the human body.
I mean, these are doctors and nurses. Of course they're going to know something about the human body. They're a lot more knowledgeable in this field than the vast majority of people. The road to medicine is not easy whatsoever, so we need to stop undermining doctors and nurses. This almost makes me want to say something like, how dare you? Because actually, how dare you? Also, who's going to write this test? You? Because you're kind of the outlier here.
And then have them with good conscience say that what we are injecting into human beings is harmless.
They probably couldn't do it.
It would be impossible.
Yes. Step 1. Bring up a hypothetical situation that is never going to happen. Step 2. Claim you know what the outcome is. Step 3. Declare moral victory over a hypothetical situation that has never happened and will never happen. Step 4. Feel good about yourself. I do that all the time myself when daydreaming. It's really quite self-assuring.
But that would change everything overnight, wouldn't it?
It
If
would.
suddenly we forced physicians to look at the truth about these injectables.
An easier way for you to change the system is to do your own research and disprove all the other literature that says vaccines are safe and effective. Write your own paper. Eventually, if you really do have truth on your side, people will start seeing it and more papers will be written to corroborate your claim. And then eventually it'll be a huge overturn. But sadly, I already know you're not going to do that. Perhaps you don't want to put in the effort, or perhaps you already know deep down that you are fighting against the truth here, and that any papers you publish would be a public embarrassment at the end of the day.
Because all we're really doing with these things is trying to prevent diseases that are a fever, a cough, a rash, and some diarrhea. Really? For what kind of harm that we're causing?
Interesting. So you actually believe in the positive effects of vaccines and how they prevent diseases. You just think that there's a cost too great to be worth it. Well, let me tell you, vaccines are not just to prevent coughing or fevers. They have the power to prevent you from getting so many different life-threatening infections such as smallpox or tetanus. There are plenty of diseases that could very well kill you, which can be stopped by getting a simple shot in your arm. That, combined with the fact that the risks are incredibly small, it is worth it to get your vaccine. With the upcoming Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, it is more important than ever that people understand that these things have been tested in tens of thousands of people to make sure it is safe for you. And of course, we can't force everyone to get it, but we highly encourage it for the safety of yourself and your family. Please trust the doctors and the researchers. That's it for the video today, guys. Special shout out to Fireshard, Alan Morton, and JN for their support at Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and sharing this video around. We must continue to battle misinformation in a world where misinformation is very accessible, and you can help out by supporting my channel or other channels like mine. Stay safe, everyone, and I'll see you next week.